Welcome to another episode of Message from Mom, where we're busting the myth that mothers in law aren't necessarily monsters in law. And we have it's a very topical and very of the moment topic today. We're going to talk about the Paris Olympics, the Summer Olympics. But before we get into that, I'm going to introduce my lovely co host, who happen to be my daughters in law. And to the left of me is Kelly. I was gonna say Kelly or Chelly or Kelsey. Sometimes I combine their names.
Yeah, she does actually. My name is Kelly and I'm married to Beth's oldest son, Alex.
And to the right of me is Chelsea.
Hi, I'm Chelsea, and I'm married to Beth's middle son, Andrew.
Okay, and before we dive into our topic today, we always raise a toast because we know that you don't need to be a blood relative to love your relative. So cheers, ladies.
Cheers.
To another episode.
Cheers.
This is episode
Oh,
20,
boy.
27. So we've filmed 6 months worth of content, which is, I
Amazing.
can't believe it's gone really fast.
Mhm.
It's really gone fast. But we do try to have some fun and breezy topics, and we really thought that the Olympics would be one of those topics. So really, for my message from mom today, I'm just going to share what it was like to watch the Olympics as a young girl, because the um, ABC, well, actually, I think it was CBS that actually broadcast the 1960 Olympics. I don't remember that. I was just two. I don't even remember the 1964 Olympics because I would have been, what, six at that time. But I vividly remember the 1968 Olympics, both the winter and summer. And ABC Sports had the rights to the broadcast at that time.
Mhm.
And it really was catapulted by, they had a series called The Wide World of Sports.
Mm.
And Jim McKay anchored that, and it just became an institution, and that really catapulted them getting the rights to the Olympics. So, and I love to watch The Wide World of Sports, but I will just share, just through the years, it was a very unifying experience, especially not only in my household, but just your community, your town, your city, schools. We would all be talking about that. And I just also just remember, because that was during the Cold War between Russia and the US. So it was, there was this huge buildup with all, with each Olympic that was broadcast, that, oh, they would give you the medal count. Like, oh, here's Russia. It was always Russia, and it was always the US. I mean, forget about Italy and France and, everybody else that showed up to play. It was just those two, that, some medal counts between the two. So you always had that tension and that aspect of it too, which was always fun.
Very dramatic.
It was very dramatic. But at home as a young girl, and I think my dad used to take time off from work, because I remember spending an inordinate amount of time in front of the TV with the whole family gathered, and my dad having, his commentary on the side, because he was really quite the character.
Everyone becomes a good
Mhm.
couch judge.
Yes, he was. I just remember during women's volleyball, I just remember one that he would, and he'd be like, I guess one of the servers, had this very dramatic gesture, and like I vividly remember my dad characterizing that. But through the years, I mean, honestly, it's been such a great spectacle to watch. It has really unified the world. I mean, that's what the sports are supposed to do, and I do think that sports can be a very unifying experience. And like, the legendary broadcasters, as I mentioned, Jim McKay and then Howard Cosell. I also remember that the 1972 Olympics were very traumatic, because the Palestinian terrorists broke into the Olympic Village and murdered 11 Israeli, Olympians, which is just heartbreaking. So that was a whole nother story. And I think that really overshadowed, I think that was the year Mark Spitz won 7 gold medals, and he didn't shave his mustache or his, or his hair. And I don't think he wore a cap and all that, which the swimmers typically do. But so that was very dramatic. And then I also remember 1980, and this ragtag American hockey team
Mhm.
that was, and they dubbed them the Miracle on Ice because they beat the Russian team, and nobody thought that that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So that was very exciting, and that was at a time in America we were really very despondent, and that really just kind of gave us a glimmer. It's like, just that hope and that. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah.
American spirit again. So that was very, very exciting. And I think it was Al Michaels, the commentator, was said, do you believe in miracles?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that's why it was dubbed, Miracle on Ice. And then
Mhm.
and then also then too, I'll just even bring it home. I'll wrap it up. The 1996 games in Atlanta,
Mhm.
which is just a hop, skip, and jump. Well, actually, Chelsea, you live in Atlanta,
My
and
parents went to it.
did
Did they
they? Yeah,
really?
that's
How
pretty
They
cool.
did.
exciting.
My mom
Wow.
has pictures from,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, they said the people that live here in Athens. So that was when we have a little highway called 316 that runs between Athens and Atlanta. And that was finished because Athens actually hosted the soccer
Mhm.
Mhm.
events.
Yeah.
So people talk about that. But the 1996 Olympics were marred by a pipe bomb
Mhm.
that went off in Centennial Park that killed
Mhm.
2 people and injured 111. So I
Mhm.
can't even imagine what security
Oh my gosh.
concerns
Yeah.
must be for
Oh,
an
yeah.
event like this that's held every 4 years, and I think there's like 15,000 athletes that show
Mhm.
up, and even though
All
they
different countries
they
and
have an Olympic village, it must make it very, very
mhm.
challenging. But
Yeah.
anyway, I love the Olympics to this very day, and just have such fond memories, growing up
Mhm.
and having it be a very unifying experience, from my family on.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I'll just kick it off, and we'll just get everybody's take on, what do you think of? I mean, what's your opinion of the Olympics so far, Kelly?
I've been really loving it. I really have, like you, a very fond memories of growing up
Hmm.
watching the Summer Olympics, more so than the winter. I do love the Winter Olympics too, but I can just pinpoint, certain times in my life and remember being in a specific place at a specific
Hmm.
time watching an
Hmm.
Olympics.
Hmm.
So I really love it, and I think that this year has been an interesting year for the Olympics because we've got these wars raging,
Hmm.
in Ukraine and going on in Israel. And it feels like, the perfect moment for an Olympics, because we
Hmm.
need these unifying moments
Hmm.
as a country and as a people and as a world.
Hmm.
So I feel like, especially this year, there's I think a lot of hope and excitement around
Hmm.
these
Hmm.
Olympics, especially because the last Olympics were not only postponed,
Hmm.
but they were during COVID, and
Hmm.
the whole thing was completely different. So it's really great to see full stands, for
Hmm.
all the events and
Hmm.
just the hearing the people cheering and stuff. It's just such a really great moment, and I think we really needed this as humans.
Hmm.
So,
I agree.
yeah.
So, Chelsea, what do
Yeah.
you?
I mean, I've been loving it as well. I feel like I've always enjoyed watching the Olympics,
Mhm.
as a child. And I grew up, I did gymnastics until I was 10 and broke my arm. And in the back of my head, I was always like, I'm going to be an Olympic gymnast.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Although, if you see how I'm built, I'm definitely not built like an Olympic gymnast. I'm not that short and,
Uh-huh.
muscular.
Mhm.
But I always enjoy watching that. And I've really enjoyed this year, I've really enjoyed watching the behind the scenes with
Mhm.
the social media aspect. A
Mhm.
lot of the competitors, and athletes that are in the Olympics now are millennials or Gen Z.
Mhm.
And obviously, we all know that the Gen Zers are out there on TikTok and,
Mhm.
doing the
Right.
most. And so it's
Mhm.
been really cool
Mhm.
to get to see all of that behind the scenes,
Yeah.
which we maybe don't always get to see.
Mhm.
But I've really enjoyed watching, all of the events.
Mhm. And I will just dovetail on that too. I have thoroughly enjoyed watching the coverage so far. We're one at the time of this podcast.
Mhm.
It's 1 week into it, so we still have still a lot of events and a
Mhm.
lot of
Yeah.
coverage still to go. But I do. I mean, now that you touched on social media a little bit, we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into that. But
Mhm.
we do get some behind the scenes that we normally wouldn't get
Mhm.
because it's somewhat of a democratized broadcast over there.
Yeah.
So I was very interested because there's been some grumbling about the Olympic
There
Village and
is.
housing itself.
And the
And
food.
I know,
Yeah, I've heard about the food.
I
People are like
know,
not happy about the
I
food,
know.
but it's like,
Apparently it's not good.
yeah.
They've had to bring in boxed
Well, they
lunches.
asked, there was kind
I
of
mean, can you imagine that? Can you be? I
no,
mean,
they literally are
it's
they asked
yeah.
the gymnast, and I think Simone Biles was trying to be nice, and she
Mhm.
said, "Oh, well, it's not your typical French food that you would get."
Uh-huh.
And then the youngest one, Hesley, I can't remember her last name, but she's 16.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's the youngest one on the team, and she goes,
Mhm.
It's not good."
So she was just
And
brutally honest.
Simone,
Yeah,
who's 27, was like,
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
trying to
she's
be
had a little bit
nice.
more
Yeah.
yeah.
press coverage and understands
Exactly.
diplomacy wins the day sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That was
yes, but I
funny.
actually saw the rooms. They're
Mhm.
super tiny, and
Mhm.
supposedly the beds are like sleeping on a cardboard box, which is
Mhm.
horrifying. Thinking
Yeah.
that sleep is the most important thing for an athlete to
Well,
have.
to touch on that, the American gymnast Frederick, he's on the male gymnast team. I can't remember his last name, but
Mhm.
he brought his own mattress with him.
Oh,
Smart,
did he?
Yes.
How
smart.
did he fly,
I mean, I think
private,
it
or
well, I
Mhm.
oh,
think
it
it was like
rolled
a
up?
roll up,
Mhm.
Interesting.
but it was
Okay.
something like
Like a little
Tempur-Pedic
topper. Yeah,
type of thing.
he
Yeah,
was
so he was thinking ahead
very
and
smart.
yes.
Very
And
smart.
I don't know if his teammates were, but I think people were kind of making fun of him and he was like,
Yeah.
"You guys don't even know, like,
Well,
I'm gonna be so glad I have this."
Yeah.
everyone was joking because they were like, "Well, there's no way LeBron James is going to be sleeping on like he's going to get a
Well,
hotel." But they thought the same thing about Simone.
of
Yeah.
They were
course.
like, "Simone's going to get a hotel," and she didn't. She is rooming with I want to say Jade.
Oh, is she rooming with Jay? I thought she was rooming with Suni. It
No,
doesn't matter.
Suni's rooming with Jordan.
Oh,
I
okay.
know all of this because of
Mhm.
TikTok.
Because of
Yeah.
TikTok, that's right, which we'll get
But yeah,
into.
which I was shocked that she didn't stay in a hotel.
Well,
I'm glad she
I'm
didn't.
very
No,
happy. I'm
I'm
very happy that Simone stayed in the Olympic
yeah,
Village
for
because
sure.
LeBron James and the rest of the U.S. Olympic basketball team rented an entire hotel out. So they
Oh,
are
did
not,
they?
yes.
Are you kidding?
No, I am not
That
kidding.
seems
So
so
I know,
un-USA
right?
team, like,
I
I mean,
know. But
No, I think that
they're
professional.
all professional
yeah.
basketball players, and so no, they did not stay in the
Which
village.
I kind of have a
So
problem with that
I
aspect
kind
of
of do.
because I thought the Olympics is supposed to be non-professional, and I know
I
times
know,
change and things,
right?
but having
I know.
NBA players on a basketball team
I
it
agree.
just doesn't
Yeah.
I'm
mesh with me.
I'm
I don't
with
like
you.
it. I don't like it.
I'm definitely with you on that.
It's
But
like, well, and that's just the experience. I mean,
yeah,
that's the
I
whole
Why
know.
experience of
wouldn't
it.
you want to do
Yeah.
I
that?
know. We don't need to necessarily have our best players in the, from the United States. We could have our best collegiate players, but
Sure.
that's a
Yeah,
whole
that's a
nother
whole nother
topic.
topic.
It really is. But also too, I was also because I love swimming and I've watched a lot of the swim events.
Mhm.
And the swimming venue is really an arena, La Defense Arena. I don't have a very good French accent here, so I'm sure the Défense or whatever they say. But anyway, but Taylor Swift just held a concert there
What's the largest arena
prior
in Europe?
prior
Which is
to the
That was
amazing.
Olympics.
crazy when I watched
So
them
they
build the pool.
Yeah.
How did they do
know.
that?
Yeah.
In 36 days. In 36
Yeah,
That's
days.
just
it's
crazy.
I know,
amazing.
isn't it? I
It's
know. And
amazing.
then they'll take it out. So
36 days, and you ask anyone that's going to build a pool in their backyard,
I
and they're like,
know.
it takes
I
6
know.
months.
No,
Right.
but they have had some complaints about it because it's not
Too
like your
shallow.
typical, it's not your typical pool. We're not breaking
Mm.
records, and they're actually swimming like a whole second behind
Oh, wow.
what they've swam or
Oh, that must be
swum before. I
frustrating
know,
for the
right?
athletes.
I know.
Yeah, because you
So
go to the
anyway,
Olympics and you're trying to like break
Break a
Olympic
world
records
record.
I
and
know,
world
right?
records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's been kind of
Mm.
interesting. But overall, I mean, I love the Olympics. So many venues. So it's not just the Olympic Village, but we have the venues like the swim arena, and then the equestrian, and then there's soccer, and there's beach volleyball. I just can't
I
even
always
imagine.
learn
Yeah,
a
it's
new sport.
amazing.
Every time
know,
the
right?
Olympics comes on, I
Mhm.
learn. Well, they have breakdancing now, which
Yeah.
I actually
I
haven't seen
know,
on TV, but I don't know if they'll actually show that
I know,
because it's newer. But it's just
crazy.
every single year I learn a new sport that
Yeah,
I didn't even know existed.
mhm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how I always wonder, how do people get into
I
this?
know, right?
Like you just, I grew up in Georgia. It's like, how do
Uh-huh.
you randomly wake up one day and you're like, I'm gonna do this, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
like,
And become an
Right?
Olympian. Yeah.
A break
I
dancer.
always learn more countries, like, because I'll watch the opening ceremonies. I'm like, I
yeah,
didn't even know that, like, that's a place. Like, it's a
Mhm.
kind of, they might only have like 2 or 3 Olympians,
Right.
but still they're representing their country. And I'm
yeah,
like, where is that? And
Right.
so it gets me
I
curious.
know. And I did think that the opening ceremonies were interesting because instead of marching on a
mhm,
field or around a
mhm,
track venue, they actually floated down the Seine River.
Yeah,
Which
which
is that was
mhm.
kind of
that was
interesting.
cute. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very different.
Very,
It
yeah,
was, yeah.
innovative.
But we've briefly touched on social media because that just plays such a big part in our everyday lives, and of course, it's going to play a part in the Olympics. So, and Chelsea, we go to you typically first for you're our little social
Social
media
media maven.
guru
Yeah.
here. So, how do you see social media playing a role in watching the games? And actually, so I'm gonna jump in before
Mhm.
get your take on this. I was really shocked, and I'm sure this swimmer was too. So it's a Brazilian swimmer, Ana Caroline Vieira, and she was sent home after being caught leaving the Olympic Village with another teammate. I think it was her boyfriend, and oh, his name was Gabriel Santos. But they slipped out after the opening ceremony and went into Paris and took some social media photos and posted on their account. And then they got kicked out of the games because they weren't supposed to do that.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? So that's the downside
Yeah,
of chronicling
yeah,
the games, and I guess they had that I
Yeah.
guess written into their contract, and
mhm,
then Brazil defended it, saying, "Listen, these are taxpayer dollars. We didn't send you over to be a tourist. We sent you
Right.
over to represent Brazil." So I thought that was kind of
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
But social media really is sharing quite a bit of the Olympics and different perspectives. So what's your take on it?
I mean, I've enjoyed the social media aspect only because I feel like I mentioned before, we are getting more of the behind the scenes that we typically wouldn't get of the Olympic Village. I mean,
Mhm.
we talked about, the cardboard beds and the
I
no air
know.
conditioning and the food. And
Oh,
that's typically,
yeah, that's right. Because I'm going to interrupt you again because America brought in air conditioners for their
oh, did they?
athletes. Yeah, because there's no air conditioning.
Because they're having a crazy heat wave that's
Yeah.
I
so
know.
abnormal.
There's
So they
no
have
air
to do that.
conditioning.
Yeah.
And all of this, I think, we didn't know before. So it
No.
Mhm.
probably was happening.
Hmm.
This is probably not new territory, but
Hmm.
we're seeing it on the backside of TikTok and Instagram
Hmm.
and I don't think that it's not necessarily that any of the athletes are quote unquote complaining about
Mhm.
it, but they're
Mhm.
kind of laughing about it and there's even there's like a rugby player that I follow that she's like blown up
Hmm.
on TikTok and everyone started following her back during she went to the Olympics in 2020
Okay.
Mhm.
in Tokyo. And it's I feel like I'm gonna butcher her name, but Alona Mar.
Okay.
She's a rugby player,
Mm.
and they did a TikTok where they jokingly were like, "Oh, we're gonna do all of these things on the cardboard bed and see if it holds up." And
Uh
just funny things like
huh.
that. And but I've actually really enjoyed it. I think a lot of the athletes like Alona Mar and some of the other athletes, they've taken a like a humorous
Sure.
aspect to
Right.
it where they're trying to play
Right.
into like, let's be funny and
Right.
Love Island just premiered. And so let's joke about how, oh, the Olympic Village is the Olympic Villa and
Hmm.
I'm here to find love.
Uh huh.
And,
Yeah.
everyone's
Yeah.
commenting and they're like, oh, have you found your match
Uh
yet?
huh. Yeah. That's cute.
That
But
is
yeah,
cute.
Yes.
so, but I do agree with you too. I think that there has been some negative sides of it. And so just to
Yes.
speak into, the negative aspects of it is one. So I think she competed in the 2020 Olympics and she was on the women's gymnastics team, Michaela Skinner.
Mhm.
So she's not currently on the team now,
Mhm.
but she basically posted this YouTube video where she commented on the lack of talent and depth in the upcoming
Yeah.
gymnastics field.
I saw
Ooh,
that.
And then she said,
ouch.
besides
Yeah.
Simone Biles, and then
Uh-huh.
basically Simone Biles captioned, she posted all of the girls
Mhm.
after they had won the team
Gold.
gold and she
Mhm.
said lack of talent,
Lazy.
lazy
Uh-huh.
Olympic
Yeah.
champions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which and then everyone commented underneath that and they were
She
like,
clapped
"Oh,
back.
she clapped back."
Yeah, and I think
So,
that's perfectly I do
yeah.
like that. I do like that aspect of social media is like when someone is going to come and have a negative comment towards you, you can actually clap back
Defend.
and defend
Yeah.
yourself. I mean,
She yeah.
which I think is, a tit for a tat.
Which kind of a part
So,
of me wondered when she clapped back, which I mean, I'm not like I
mhm,
was here for it because
mhm.
I was like, okay.
Well, yeah. Well,
But
I'm sorry, winning the gold medal, your team
yeah.
wins the gold medal, and
Yeah.
you're being called lazy. And what
Yeah.
else what did she
It
say?
was like
Lack of
lazy and there's
talent.
like lack of talent, like
I'm
there's a
sorry.
lack of depth to the
Yes.
gymnastics field. I think
Yes.
it's not a lack of depth to that field. I
Mhm.
think it's different.
Mhm.
As the years go on, I think there's a different level.
It
And I think a
changes.
lot of people compare like, Nastia Lukens and she was very artistic in
Yeah.
her gymnastic
Yes.
style, very almost
Yes.
ballet like.
Yes.
Well, you actually see that between the different teams. I mean, I
Yes.
think the Brazilian team floor exercises for gymnastics, the women, their floor exercises, like the music that they chose and the routines that they had were very artistic and
Mhm.
very fun. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
they felt very alive and not just like rote in terms of like, we need to
Right.
get these things done. We have to do
Right.
these, difficulties and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It felt fresh. And I think
Mhm.
that, more teams having that is really
Mhm.
entertaining and
Yeah.
it's exciting to see that.
Mhm.
For
So I was
sure.
really happy for the
Yes.
Brazilian team to come up
Mhm.
and actually show that.
Right.
It was really exciting.
Well, and through the years, sports change, like
Mhm.
gymnastics, and like I just remember back watching Olga Korbut. She was a
Mhm.
Russian gymnast that burst on the scene. She was just this itty bitty, teeny tiny, very petite gymnast.
Mhm.
And now, if you look at Simone Biles, I mean, if you put them side by side, then there's Nadia Comaneci in between, who
Mhm.
is still more of a tiny, petite gymnast. But then you have these powerhouses now. I mean, I can think of Mary Lou Retton and now Simone Biles. So there's
Mhm.
different takes,
Mhm.
to the same sport, which is very
Right.
interesting. But I think it keeps it interesting
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
do.
I like to me, I think Simone Biles is obviously, I mean, she is the best of the best in
Yeah.
gymnastics. And I think gymnastics, I think it's great to add the artistic style to it. And I
Hmm.
love seeing, how Nastia competed it and compared to Simone, they're two very different
Hmm.
Olympic gymnasts.
Hmm.
But I think Simone is a powerhouse. And I think that that's really what gets her the word that I'm looking for, the higher skill level.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So when she's competing, that's how people can't necessarily touch her
Hmm.
or get close to beating her is because her skill level is
Right.
at a way, I
Yeah.
mean, she's already starting,
Yeah.
5 points above everyone else.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
she really
The
has to
level of
mess it
her
up,
Her level of
difficulty
difficulty
Her level of
is
starts
thank you.
out.
off
Level of
the
difficulty. I'm like,
it's
what's the
off the
what's the word
charts.
I'm
Yeah.
looking
And
for?
when you watch her compete and you see her flips and how high she gets, and
Yeah.
you have, I mean, what an athlete she is.
She had some
What an athlete.
height during her floor routine that she was getting like
Oh,
11 and 12 feet in the air. I mean,
yes.
Oh,
just
it's
like
wild.
It
crazy.
is.
She's like
It's
4'8".
I know.
Yeah.
She's 4'8". She
She's so
really
That's kind of,
is.
it
anyways.
really is amazing.
So, but yeah, I think as far as bringing it back to the social media
Uh-huh.
part of it, I know we got a little
Mhm.
sidetracked there, but
That's okay. We're already kind of morphing into our next question, which is, what's your favorite event to watch, and and who's your favorite athlete
oh yeah,
or
Mhm.
athletes. And we've
Mhm.
already touched on Simone Biles, who is can't be touched
hmm
Yeah.
in her field.
Yeah.
But I really did like to see how she was like so supportive of everybody else too on her
oh
team.
yeah.
She seems to be a real team player.
Mhm.
I think they all are. I
I
think
think
that they're
so.
all. I think
Hmm.
that even so, Lori Hernandez is, and I've actually loved her commentating.
Hmm.
So she's been commentating on the gymnastics, and she was on the 2016 team,
Mhm.
I believe.
Yeah.
And so she's a Gen Zer, and
Hmm.
her commentary is just hilarious
Yeah.
because she knows the girls, and
Hmm.
obviously she's from a younger generation.
Uh-huh.
Um, but where was I going with this?
Your favorite athlete or
Oh,
Simone
Simone, and
being
like
supportive?
being yeah, and so there was one she posted a TikTok and someone commented like, "Oh, I knew that you were crying after Simone's floor routine because you were so quiet."
Yeah.
Because basically Simone Biles finished and then Lori didn't like there was no commentary.
She gets
And she
teared
was
up a
like, I was
lot.
bawling.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
She's
But I think she
regularly
knows.
coming in with like her
Yeah.
voice
Yeah.
is shaky and she's like, "That was amazing." You know, it's like so good.
Yeah. And well, and
Yes.
she knows, and she was just in it, you know,
Yeah.
and so it's like she knows what they go
She's
through to be there.
emotionally
Yeah.
invested, and I think that that's great in commentary, especially for
Yeah.
a sport that
Mhm.
actually has a lot of emotion to it. You
Mhm.
know, it's really great to like have
Yeah.
a commentator who,
Mhm.
you know, can talk the talk, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah.
Well, so besides Simone, who is one of your favorite athletes?
I mean, I think we all really enjoy Suni Lee. I feel like
Mhm.
she's been one of my favorites. And she actually,
This is such a
so
great story.
Yeah.
I know she's
Comeback
overcome
story.
like kidney disease
Two.
and
Two different
Two
different
kidney
yeah,
diseases.
at the same
Yeah.
time.
which is
And
crazy.
she's such a young woman. So yes, to come
Yeah.
back from that and then to
Mhm.
be able to participate in the Olympics, that's says
No,
something
well,
about
I
her.
think every single one of them has a great story. But yeah, I really enjoy watching her. Besides the gymnastics, I've enjoyed watching the women's beach volleyball actually.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
don't know
Alex
what are
loves
Yeah.
women's beach
Well,
volleyball.
That's what so does Andrew.
talk about a beach bod.
Oh
Those
my
volleyball
gosh. What are
players.
the USA?
And they're new.
What
They're
are their
fairly
names?
newer on the
I can't remember their names,
Yeah.
but
Remember their
there's
names?
two teams.
producer.
Okay, there's two teams.
Could you
Yeah.
take a look at
There's a short, so the
the
one
names
that
of
I'm
our
thinking about
women's volleyball
That was the
is
team
the
that played
5'6".
first.
There's one girl
and
that's
really
5'6"
She's
tall?
short.
and one that's really tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I think I watched them compete against China.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But I just was like, oh my gosh, could you imagine
So good.
volleyball
Mhm.
and then only two people, which I
Mhm.
mean, I know that's how it always is in beach volleyball.
Mm.
And then you're on the sand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But then you're playing at night in this
And then you're playing at
arena
night. And
under
then
the lights,
had
which
the
is
rain, it was
I
raining.
know.
So then the
But
ball
then there's the
slick.
Eiffel Tower. Like it's such a
know.
beautiful spot.
Yeah.
They
I know.
really
It's
put that
kinda
in a
crazy. It
gorgeous,
really
gorgeous
is.
place. The setting is
Yeah.
fantastic.
So Kelly, oh wait, Sharon and Kelly? I don't know.
I don't think that that's
No?
the right team.
No.
Yeah, beach volleyball Olympians US.
There's
Okay.
two different teams.
So Kelly,
Okay.
who have been some of your
So
favorite athletes to watch?
I love Katie Ledecky.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
swimming to me, like, and diving are two of my favorite
Mhm.
summer Olympic sports.
Mhm.
And I've got a lot more now because they've added so many, like
Oh.
skateboarding, I love. And
Mhm.
but I particularly like the Japanese women's skateboarding team.
Uh-huh.
But as far as competitions that are just really exciting and fun to watch, like Katie Ledecky and like all the
I
swim
know.
teams, both men and
Mhm.
women, like
Yep.
they are
Mhm.
so much. It doesn't all. Also, I will say, like the commentator Rowdy, I can't remember his last
Rowdy
name.
Gaines.
Yep.
He's a
His
former
commentary,
swimmer.
he's just like at like top, he's like
Mhm.
turning it up to 11 with everything that he says. And on the one hand, I'm like, stop yelling. But on the other hand, I'm like, he's just like totally making
so
it
excited.
so much more
Yeah,
exciting.
he's so
Yeah.
into it. I
It
know.
really is. It's so exciting. But
Yeah.
I think that Katie Ledecky is like, I it's kind of amazing her accomplishments as a
Mhm.
swimmer.
Mhm.
You know, like she is just
Mhm.
and to watch her, I think it was the 1500, it was night before last. She was like practically a full length ahead. Like
I
she had
know.
lapped
It's
every
crazy.
like it
Mhm.
was so phenomenal. I was just like mouth open like agape, like
Mhm.
I cannot believe that this woman is so amazingly fast. And she just kept it. Like
Mhm.
her consistency is amazing. She's just really fantastic. And I really love her. And from what everyone says who knows her, she's just the most big hearted, warm, generous, supportive
Mhm.
person. And that just makes it seem all that much more amazing to me
Yeah.
that she's
Warms your heart.
done all that she has. Yeah,
It
she's
does.
fantastic.
Well, I'll just dovetail on that because there's a French swimmer,
Mm-hmm.
Leon Marchand, and it
Love
must be
him.
so exciting to swim in your,
Mhm.
your country because
Mhm.
the support and the applause and just the cheering for him has been so fun to watch. But he's also very fun to watch.
Yeah.
He actually trains in the U.S. I think he
Mhm.
swims at Arizona State University,
Yes.
and he has the same coach that Michael Phelps did. And but he's been very impressive to watch, and just and then again, miles ahead of everybody
I know,
else.
it's
It
incredible.
really is very, very incredible. So I've enjoyed that. And then Suni Lee, and I just love her story. And then also the equestrian events.
Mhm.
Or at
And
Versailles, which is like, how could you not watch the
I
equestrian events
know.
right,
at Versailles?
That's
It's so
crazy.
so
amazing.
beautiful.
Oh,
So we have uh, one of the Olympians is her name is Laura Kraut, and
mhm.
she's 59 years old. So that just really warmed my
Oh, she's
heart.
59.
She's
Wow.
59,
Yeah.
which is great to see
Mhm.
that someone can compete in the
Yeah, that's
Olympics
great.
even at a later period of their life. And her,
Yeah.
I won't even try to pronounce the name of her horse, but what a magnificent animal. I
Yeah.
mean, he is just gorgeous, and she took home the silver.
Mhm.
So
Nice.
that
Oh, good for
I do
her.
like to watch the
Yeah,
equestrian
I
events.
really
Yeah.
do too, actually. And I was very one of my favorite behind the scenes little documentaries that I've watched online was how they get their horses. Cause I was like,
Uh-huh.
how? Because the
Mhm.
horses are just as much athletes
They are.
as
Oh,
the
yeah.
riders,
They
right?
are.
But yeah, the whole
Absolutely.
process of getting the
Yeah.
horses to, and they go
Uh-huh.
early, and
Yep, you have to get them
the
over
plane that they
there.
fly on is called
Oh, they fly the
they
horses?
Yeah,
fly, yeah.
I would
yeah,
think they
Yeah.
would put them on,
yeah.
like, a boat or something. I don't
No,
No.
know.
no, no. They go in
Mhm.
these kind of
Are they the only thing allowed on
crates.
the plane? I mean, how many
I'm not 100% sure. I think
Mhm.
so. I think it's just for
I was gonna
and it probably
say.
depends on like where it's coming from,
Mhm.
Yeah.
how many
Right.
horses that they're
Yeah.
taking, but
Mhm.
what I thought was interesting was that they will sometimes go so far ahead of time, like months and months, so that
The
they
horse can
can
get
They
used
can
to
get
it. That
acclimated.
makes sense.
acclimated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and their
Yeah.
food, I mean, their food is
Mhm.
very important, and
Well,
yes,
because if they
getting them
don't, I
all
mean,
settled.
you're the horse, like you
Yeah,
said, is as much as an athlete, and then if
yeah.
you're not acclimated, they're not gonna perform to
Mhm.
the
Right.
best of their ability.
Right.
Yeah.
So some
Yeah.
horses don't go that far ahead of time because one of the points that they brought up in this little mini doc that I was watching was that the horses get jet lag,
Yeah,
just
just like
like we
us.
do,
I know.
but
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily happen in the same way. So like
Mhm.
they'll just have like very off days, and so they like to
Mhm.
get them there
Mhm.
early enough to kind of get them through
Mhm.
having off days.
Everything.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But like
I
as far
know.
as the Olympics go, like it's
Crazy.
so human focused, and the
Uh-huh.
equestrian thing and
Uh-huh.
having horses in
Yes.
it's just so
It's a
cool. I
different
love it.
aspect
Yeah.
to it,
Mhm.
which
I
is
really
Yeah.
love it.
yes, I do too. Well, and so speaking to that, so what has been one of your favorite moments in the Olympics so far, Kelly?
Well, I actually going back to swimming, Marchand, like being able to
Mhm.
swim in his home
Mhm.
country in Paris and
Mhm.
having the crowd cheering for him, like
Mhm.
as a viewer, even through the television, you just feel that electricity. And I think
You.
that seeing him in all of his races has just been really exciting. And I really love Michael Phelps.
Mhm.
And I've missed him so
Yeah.
much that to have this connection to Phelps and to have Phelps
Uh-huh.
like being, on set watching and like commentating on the races has been really fun to see him.
Uh-huh.
I think he reminds me of my brother, and that's why I love him so much. I'm not totally sure what my obsession with Phelps
Uh-huh.
is, but like
Well, he was on the scene for a
he
long,
really was.
long
And
time.
watching him in the Olympics is like, I mean,
Mhm.
he was just so amazing.
Yeah.
So I think Marshawn having that connection to him
Yeah.
has been really, really
Yeah.
fun for me. So
Yeah.
that's been my favorite so far, but I'm really looking forward to track and field.
Yes, which is
I'm looking forward
that's
to track
yes,
and
and
field.
that's what the
Mhm.
next week is,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
yes, and I did see. So this is interesting. This is kind of off topic, but they have a mixed relay now, so it's men
Mm.
and women.
I
What?
watched that last night.
I saw
Really?
yes, and I'm
They
like,
hit a world record last night, the
they
US team.
did,
Wow.
they did. It was
Mhm.
amazing. It was amazing. Well,
Wow.
first I was wrapping my head around. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, they just handed the
Mixed?
baton off to a woman. I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
confused here.
Yeah.
So, but
Wow.
it was amazing.
I'm gonna have
Yes,
to check that
yeah,
out. I
yeah.
did
So
not even
I
know.
think that was one of the first events for track and field.
Oh, cool.
But anyway, Chelsea, what's been one of your favorite moments from the Olympics?
Well, I think obviously I'm a big gymnastics
Mhm.
fan, and I think watching Simone Biles' last floor routine, which was the
Mhm.
last event that she competed until she got gold for all around, and like every single landing, it was like everyone
Mhm.
was holding their breath. So that was pretty cool. And then I think like a really cool moment in what we kind of pointed to before on how they are so supportive of one another
Mhm.
is there is a clip of a Brazil gymnast on the beam, Rebecca
Mhm.
Andrade, and I probably butchered her last name, but she did really well, and you could see Simone on the side, and
Oh,
it was almost like a level of respect, but
Mhm.
Simone like started clapping,
Mhm.
and she just kind of
mhm.
like nodded her head like, "Yep." She was
Mhm.
like, "This girl could maybe beat me." And
Yeah.
she said that in the, at the end after she won, she said, she was like, "I think I'm done for now. Like, I think I'm hanging up my boots," because she was
Yeah.
like, "Rebecca gave me
Run for our
a run
money.
for my
Yeah.
Love
money." And
it.
she was like, "I have not been that stressed in a long time."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I will say that there was one moment, there's a lot of gymnastics moments, but the
Mhm.
one moment that I really truly enjoyed seeing live was, so Jordan Childs had her floor exercise, and the camera that was on her at the corner,
mhm.
and she raised her fist and winked, and it was like,
Oh, I saw that.
oh
I
my
saw
gosh,
that.
it
Yeah.
was like the most, it was the very beginning of her floor
It was during the
exercise.
team. It was for the team
Yes, it
finals.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, even just
Yeah.
talking about it now gives me chills. Like, because I actually really like Jordan Childs. Like, she's
Yeah.
my,
Yeah.
if, you know,
I
Suni
know.
Lee is my
Yeah, I
number
love
one. She's my number two. Like,
Uh-huh.
I just love her so much. And
Jordan Childs
she,
is like the definition of a girl's girl.
yeah,
Like they talk about her, and so her and Suni Lee are rooming together,
chills.
and Suni Lee, I guess Jordan always does Suni's hair before
Mhm.
the meet.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And an interviewer asked both of them, they said, "Do you have any superstitions? Like, do you have to do anything
Mhm.
before, the meet?" And Jordan like points over at Suni, and Suni goes, "Yeah." She goes, "If Jordan doesn't get my hair right on the first go round," she goes, "I just know it's going to be a bad meet." And
Oh,
Jordan was like, "It's a lot of pressure. I have to get it right on the first time."
Too cute. It's
that is
really
really
Yeah.
cute.
cute. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Jordan Childs is a really grounding. I'm speculating, obviously,
Yeah.
because I have
We
no
are.
idea. But just
Right.
watching them on TV, and after the 2021 games in Tokyo, like, I just feel like Jordan just has this very grounding presence on that team.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
really, really like her energy and her attitude, and I really appreciate her, and I always like watching her.
Well,
So
Mhm.
you know what they named they had two names
Mhm.
for the team.
Mhm.
And so Allie Raisman, when they were, what's the, I don't, like, I can't, I'm blanking on the word, but at the very end where they kind of get up there and then everyone asks them questions, I guess it's like an interview
Mhm.
mhm.
back and forth. But Allie Raisman asked, because she knew what their team name was, and
Mhm.
she kind of had a smirk on her face. She goes, "So what's y'all's team name?" And Simone kind of rolled her eyes, and she goes, "Well, do I need to abbreviate it? Because it was F around and find out."
Oh,
Uh-huh.
And then basically they won the gold. And then she said, "Actually, our new team name is Golden Girls because we're the oldest Olympics gymnastics team."
Oh,
wow,
that's so cute.
that's
So,
really
which I thought,
cute.
because she's
Yeah,
I like
27
that.
and the rest of them are like 23, 24.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
So,
that's cute.
Well, I think to date, my favorite event was the men's 4x100 relay. I love
Mm.
relays, and
Mhm.
especially swimming, because they are just swimming their hearts out, and
mhm.
it's an individual sport. So when they get on the relay team, it's very fun to watch how they really
Mhm.
come together.
Yeah.
And so that was very exciting. And America did win the gold, but there was one swimmer, and his name is Hunter Thomas, and he just swam his heart out,
Yeah.
and just really, I mean, it was kind of neck and neck, and then he just came in, and he just, he wasn't the anchor, but he really kind of sealed the deal for the
Set them
US.
up perfectly.
Set
Yeah.
them up for success. So
Mhm.
that was very fun and
Mhm.
exciting to watch. It really
Yeah.
was. But on that note, so how do you think this year's Olympic compares to years gone by?
Hmm.
Um, well, we still have a little bit of time to go.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think it's interesting that they're bringing in new sports. The breakdancing thing is going to be interesting. I wish they would bring swing. If they're going to bring breakdancing, they need to bring swing dancing.
Swing
Yeah,
dance.
or like some ballroom dancing
Yeah,
Yes, I
would be
mean,
very.
really. But then we start going down a road. It's like,
I know.
okay, but I do think that the Olympics does have to change with modern
Mhm.
times and things,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I just I do think this is a lot like most other Olympics in the past where, like, there are these really amazing moments, and you'll just always remember where you were and what you were doing when
Mhm.
Mhm.
when you saw it, who you were with,
Yeah.
Mhm.
in that moment.
I think
Mhm.
it brings people together, and in a way that maybe sometimes you didn't necessarily know that you needed to be
Mhm.
brought together. But
Mhm.
I think too, there is moments where you watch, like you said, you got chills when Jordan Childs winked and she,
Right.
Yeah.
and I think there's like a level where you do get chills and I guess not necessarily how hard they work, but you do see how much time they put
Yes.
into it. And so when someone wins the gold, and especially if it is the US, it's very just
Yeah.
like, wow, like I almost like feel like what they went through, even though I know I didn't, but
Yeah.
Right.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the power of sports though, right? Like
Yes.
that's why.
Mhm.
Yes. But I will just harken back because the 1920 the 2020 the 2020 Olympics were held in Tokyo, but we briefly touched on that because it was during COVID.
Mhm.
When it was postponed
So,
a year.
mhm.
So some athletes that were too young to have
Uh-huh.
competed
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
2020 actually became of age so they could compete. I thought that was
Mhm.
interesting. That was a
Mhm.
diving thing, the Chinese
Mhm.
synchronized diving team.
Mhm.
Mm.
But I'm sure there has to be if you were participating in those Olympics and this Olympics, what a change because you
Mhm.
actually have the
Right.
crowds. I mean, because the swimmers were swimming to an empty swim
Yeah.
arena and
Right.
uh,
The excitement's not
the
as
basketball team
yeah.
was,
Well,
playing to an empty
what's so sad
stadium.
too is that like they were playing
So,
clips of like when they had the medal ceremony.
mhm,
Not only were the winners wearing masks, but they
mhm.
couldn't the person handing them the medals couldn't put it around
Around
them.
they couldn't drape it over their neck.
They had to
Oh,
put it on
yeah.
themselves, and I feel
Yeah.
like that being kind of
Yeah.
anointed, as it were, with the medal is like such a
Yeah.
big part of winning a
Yes.
medal, right? Like
Well,
it's
Yes.
even
huge.
It
there is
is.
like a performance aspect to each of these
Mhm.
sports, and coming from a ballet or dance background,
Mhm.
half the fun of doing the sport or, doing what you do is so that you can do it in front of people.
Right.
Right.
And when you can't do it in
Right.
front of people,
That's
that
right.
does take away
Takes
the,
so much out of it.
Because
like,
you're like, I do this all the time in practice. Like, what am
Yes.
I doing it here
I
for?
know.
Like,
yeah,
it's very
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
Yeah.
it would have to be a little bit deflating to be an
Sure.
Olympian at the Olympics where there's no one watching you
Right.
Mhm.
and where the focus is just so much different because of that.
Mhm.
But before we wrap this up, let me go into my favorite segment, which is new and noteworthy. But just dovetailing on that, we don't have just one network broadcasting the
Right.
Olympics like how I grew up. I mean, it was
Mhm.
ABC had it for years, and then they handed it off to NBC, and then Bob Costas. I always loved his like little fireside chats and
Mhm.
Mhm.
behind the scenes with the athletes. But now it's streamed. So have you found it challenging to watch the games? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Because I mean, actually, that's our foundational piece. That was really one of the things that we did kind of want to touch on because it's more
Mhm.
complicated or it can be more complicated than ever to watch sports
Right.
in 2024 even though it's supposed to be easier. I mean, sometimes I'm kind of longing for cable, which I didn't
Yeah.
think that I would ever be thinking, but so have you found it easier or harder to watch the Olympics with how it's set up now?
I think the scheduling is really challenging. Like, I never know when something is going to be on. And even when I'm on, because I watch the Olympics on Hulu Live,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
even if I'm looking at the live uh, lineup in the
Right.
channel guide, and I'm like, oh, it's women's fencing. It might actually, when I click on it, it might
It's something
actually be
different.
something totally
Yeah.
Right.
different because it's like, I think
Right.
the scheduling is totally wackadoo. Like, I don't
Mhm.
think that there's any rhyme or reason to how that's working out. But
Mhm.
on the other hand, there are more stations that are having stuff. So there's the
Mhm.
entertainment
Mhm.
channel,
Mhm.
USA Network,
Mhm.
NBC, and then Peacock as the big streamer.
Right.
So I
Which
think
NBC owns that because I
they
do think
do.
that NBC like
I think they
owns
dole
the
out
rights,
the yeah.
Mhm.
I'm gonna
to
say that they do.
broadcast, and then they dole
Yeah.
it out to everybody else,
Hmm.
so they
Hmm.
get a piece of the pie, but
Right.
anyway.
Yeah. So I think having certain events, obviously NBC is gonna and Peacock are gonna have like
Mhm.
all of
Right.
the very popular events. And then I've been watching equestrian and, things like table tennis and, the kind of lesser popular
Mhm.
things are on some of the other
Mhm.
channels. But
Right.
on Hulu Live, you can flip between Because you can just say,
Right.
show me everything that's playing live on television right now. And then you can
Right.
kind of pick and choose what you want
Yeah.
to.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, it really is more of a tailor-made
Mhm.
Olympic Games than it ever has been.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been
Like,
kind of enjoying having the
you
different
like that?
I mean, I like it in the sense of kind of like you said, sometimes before we had all of these different streaming services, whatever you put on TV, that was what it was. And then
Mhm.
if you missed the
Mhm.
gymnastics or if you missed the swimming, then you kind of just missed it until maybe they did a rerun of it later.
Right.
Right.
But I will agree with you on there have been moments where I'll click on because I use Hulu to stream it, or that's how I've been watching it through their live streaming. And sometimes you'll click on it and then it'll say, oh, women's volleyball, but then it'll be
Mhm.
fencing or something like that.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
so that might just be a timing aspect of
Mhm.
Yeah.
one sport ran longer than the other.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm not sure what
Um,
the issue with that is, but I will say, like, I do miss the old days where we just had it on at a certain time and the family
Right.
gathered around. But
mhm.
also, like, the more that the Olympics happen in other time zones and other, countries where the time is totally different. Like, I don't want to get up
Mhm.
at 6:30 in the morning and
Mhm.
watch women's
Oh yeah,
gymnastics. Like,
Right.
I will actually just wait for the prime
that's
time
And that's what we
yeah.
used to have to
coverage.
do.
And
Right.
and so it
And
is
then just not
nice
go
to
on
not.
social media
Right.
until
Yes.
that
To
night
have it
because you
ruined.
can't have it
Right.
ruined.
Have a
Kind of how
spoiler.
I've been
Right.
doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there are advantages to the old days
Mhm.
because it really was a unifying,
Yeah.
because we're all watching the same event at the same time. And so we all
Mhm.
felt we were participating in that
Together.
event. And then we could
Mhm.
talk about it. And,
Yeah.
so whether you were at school the next day or, the water cooler at work, you could really talk about it.
Yeah.
Whereas now we were really talking about it.
Mhm.
It's more tailor made. So, which
Mhm.
is not a bad
That's true.
thing because you really can just zero in on
Mhm.
those events that you love
Mhm.
or maybe wouldn't have even been shown because there's only so many events that any network
Right.
can show at one time. So, so maybe this really is the democratization. So maybe that is a good
Mhm.
thing. And then we can, because I've been watching mine over on YouTube. So at the top, I'll just scroll across it. So it has swimming, gymnastics, fencing,
Mhm.
whatever. So then I just, scroll over to what I want to see. And like you just mentioned, Kelly, if we missed it in the old days, you missed it. But now
Yeah.
you can watch
Mhm.
like the men's 4x100 relay. I could watch it 500 times if I wanted to. I mean,
Mhm.
that's kind of,
We can relive the
we
moment.
could relive the
Yeah.
moment or, whatever it is. But anyway,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I think overall, I think we've really been enjoying the Paris
Mhm.
Olympics
I
and
do think so. And I think too, going just really quick to kind of wrap it up, like,
Mhm.
I think if you and I, and I don't know that you necessarily do, but we definitely have memories of it being like a come together
Mhm.
moment.
Yes.
And I will just say
Yes.
that my mom and I, like, we live just a minute from each other. And so we've set aside, like, okay, what's happening on this night? We're going to get together and watch it. So
Mhm.
don't
Right.
watch anything all day.
Right.
And then we'll get
Yeah.
together. And
Yeah.
so we've done that twice now. We did it for women's swimming, like Katie Ledecky's
Uh-huh.
first race. And then we just did it on Thursday night for the
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
all around final and for gymnastics. And that's been a lot of fun. But I do think you have to kind of carve out and
You
create
do.
that
You do.
You
in
do.
Yeah.
today's.
Yes.
But
And then also say we're not watching it. If it actually happens to be premiered before you get together, then you
we're
both
not watching
know.
it.
That's
Yeah.
right. You're not watching it
Yeah.
until we get together. But no,
Exactly.
I think it's been great. I've been enjoying it thoroughly, and I'm really looking forward to this next week too.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
all right, ladies. Well, we're gonna wrap it up, and we're gonna take a very quick break, and we will be back with new and noteworthy. Okay, and we're back with my favorite segment. So this is where we women are sharing our favorites. So whether it's a product, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a TV show. I mean, whatever really kind of catches
Yeah.
our or suits our fancy this past week. So Kelly, I'll let you kick us off this week.
All
So
right.
what do you have?
I actually have a documentary. So this is on HBO,
Mhm.
and it's called Faye: The Many Lives of Faye Dunaway.
Oh,
Yes. So I've always loved Faye Dunaway. I saw Bonnie and Clyde when I was way too young to see that
that's a
movie,
little violent.
but she really stuck with me from that
Hmm.
point on. And then Mommy Dearest, of course,
Oh my
was
gosh.
quite quite the
No wire hangers.
so it was really interesting to learn more about her because she just kind of went away at a certain point, I think, in her career and life. And she participates in the documentary, so you hear firsthand from her what her
Okay.
experiences were like. And of course, we can't forget movies like Chinatown
Mhm.
also. So yeah, just a really fantastic documentary. Apparently, she had been diagnosed with depression.
Mhm.
So she kind of talks about how that played into like her movie making experience, and just a really well-rounded
Mhm.
good documentary.
Okay.
I
Well,
really enjoyed
I've
it.
always loved her. She's a fantastic actress and really some very iconic roles
Very.
through the years, definitely. So, okay, I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
Okay, Chelsea, what do you have for us?
I kept it kind of on our sports theme
Uh-huh.
a little bit. So the doing a cold plunge, but specifically
Mm.
with ice barrel or ice, I think it's ice barrel.
Mhm.
But we have one at my house, which Andrew loves. He does it every day, every morning.
Mhm.
I'm not as
He's a little obsessed about it.
he's a little obsessed. I don't do it as much as he does, but basically it's this ice barrel
Mhm.
that you specifically have to order through this company because you can't just go to Home Depot. Trust me, we tried to do that.
Right. You can't just
And
jerry
it
rig a
costs-
system.
yeah,
No.
they're too small.
You really have to
But he
buy
basically,
into the
we have a
system.
pump that he kind of drilled into the ice barrel. And so
Mhm.
it continuously pumps cold water. So it's always at, the 38, I would say between 36 to like 45 degrees.
It's flipping cold.
It's really cold. So it gets warmer obviously during the summertime, but we recently just got it's almost like a koozie for your beer,
Oh, yeah.
but it's
Oh.
for
So
the ice barrel. So it keeps
Wow.
it cold.
That's interesting.
But yeah, so look it up ice barrel
Insulates it.
and
We
they're
can
kind
provide
of
the link too.
yeah, we'll
We'll
provide the
have the
link.
link. Well,
They're kind
we can add the link on YouTube.
Mhm.
yeah.
So if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, we can add all the links and our foundational pieces. I mean, you can find everything in the description box down below. So
But yeah, I've been
the cold
I do
plunge.
it. I do it occasionally. I did it this week actually.
Did you?
I probably should be better about doing it because it really does help, and you do feel better after you do it. But
Yeah.
it's more of a mindset thing.
Yeah.
It's really
I wonder
hard.
if the
Yeah.
Olympic athletes do cold
Oh, I'm
plunges.
sure.
I bet a lot of
I'm
them
sure they do.
I wonder what the percentage is. We should
Oh, I'm sure they all do
we
it.
should look
I'm
that.
sure
we
they
should
all
look
do
that
it.
up. I know
Yeah.
because that really is a very
A
groundbreaking.
lot of them do the cupping too, because you'll see the
Mhm.
bruises on there.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sure they do cold plunge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, mine is also dovetailing on sports.
Mhm.
So, and I recently started taking golf lessons. I've had like 2 gazillion through the years from when I was a teenager on. But I was always very happy because my late husband Mac loved golf, and the boys they were in an amazing junior golf program. But I was always happy to wave goodbye while
Mhm.
they all went off golfing, and then I would go shopping or whatever. So,
Sure.
so it was really twofold. But just recently, I was at a resort this spring, and I took a walk along their golf course, and for the first time, I was mad at myself that I had never taken advantage of golf lessons or playing golf or any of that. So I was like, okay, this is a year that I'm going to rectify that. So anyway, um, but in the vein of that, Andrew, Chelsea's husband, Andrew loves golf. Is just such a big
Well,
golf
he's
nut.
golfing right now.
Yeah,
As we
yes.
speak.
Any chance that he gets, but he actually got me hooked on this it's a docu-series called Full Swing,
Oh yeah.
Oh.
where it follows several players during a golf season,
Mhm.
and they have 2 seasons out, and so it was fascinating. I mean, I really found the series to be very well done, and so it's not only just the best players, but popular players and players that aren't doing so well, just players on the PGA Tour, and then they took a deep dive into there's a new golf league called Live, so that broke off from the PGA, so that was a whole in the first season, that was a big whole thing. In the second season, then um, how the PGA, who was never going to be uh, coupling up with Liv, is now in talks with Liv. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's very interesting to see the life of an athlete and then a golf athlete, at the
Mhm.
top of their game. It's such a challenging game too. But
Yeah.
in the second season, they really focus on the Ryder Cup as well, which is so there again, like swimming, golf is a very individualistic
Mhm.
sport, but the Ryder Cup brings them together on a team. So that was
Oh,
really fun to
okay.
watch, and behind the scenes with that, and then
Mhm.
how they played at the Ryder Cup. And the next Ryder Cup is in 2025, and that's back here on U.S. soil, and that will be at the Bethpage Black golf course in New York. But they've already named the team captain, and it's Keegan Bradley, and he was actually left off of the last Ryder Cup, and it was kind of sad because he'd played on the Ryder Cup a couple of times, but he was left off, and
Mhm.
you could tell that he was really disappointed. But
That's it.
anyway, he is now the team captain for the 2025 Ryder Cup. But again, the name of the series is Full Swing, and me as a female, I have because it's we're following the men's PGA.
Mhm.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's been really it's been fun to watch.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Message from Mom, where we're busting the myth that mothers in law aren't necessarily monsters in law.